Hello everyone and welcome back to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. What are you looking at? Well, right now you are looking at my latest purchase. Yes, I have basically went and bought yet another, or rescued, should I say, another Kenmore sewing machine. And I cannot help myself with these, and there's a reason. Now, very often these machines come in sewing carry cases. I'm not sure why there was more of a trend toward carry cases in the 1970s. You guys are no stranger to this machine if you have been watching my channel for a while, because I've been buying and restoring these for a number of years, and I have found that it's hard for me to say no. They often don't bring as good a price in many parts of North America than you would think, and I think they are probably one of the most underrated and underappreciated machines. This machine got my attention in part because it came in a table, and because it's the 1970s, a lot of the sewing machines had already gone and started using plastic in the drivetrain parts. Some of them did. You guys have seen my videos, or maybe you have not. Done some videos on what I call hybrid machines. These are machines that are part metal, part plastic. But this machine, of course, is what I call the last of the great all-metal machines, because I think it was. But what got my attention with this one is it came in a table, and very few of them ever did. Not sure why. If some of you know, please share that with me. But before I bring the machine up, which is sitting in the table, one of the things that tells you this is either a late 60s or early mid 70s machine is the table itself. So if I angle the camera down, you will see, in fact, this is not wood, this is laminate. Now this, I think, would have been called quote-unquote walnut, but of course laminate, wood laminate was developed at some point in the 1950s, and they kept getting better and better at it. By the mid-late 60s, it became more prevalent. You see it more in home furniture generally, and that included sewing machines. And essentially what they had done was they would take photographs of wood grain, and then they would create a graphic printing, if you will, and then they would put it under this some sort of sealer, or maybe it was laminated under another surface. And you know, you look at this and you think, gosh, this table, for example, parts of it are solid wood, and then parts of it are sort of a, not an MDF, more of a what we casually call particle board. Structurally, it's quite strong. You don't want to drill into it a lot, and you don't want it to get wet. And even though, you know, today, you know, I'm often talking about how wonderful the vintage tables are because they're solid wood and they have beautiful veneers. They have veneers on them too, but the wood veneers are real, instead of taking a picture of wood and putting it on top of wood particle. And so by the 1970s, they were doing this with furniture. Ironically, when wood laminate was first introduced, it was quite pricey because it was the latest, greatest thing. People were drawn to it because it had been very much a customary thing for people to polish furniture. And anytime a product could offer you less maintenance, hey, it's polish free, you don't have to polish it. That was one of its main selling points. It would also resist, you can scratch laminate, but it's a lot more scratch resistant than, say, a soft varnish or shellacked finish on a piece of wooden furniture. And eventually, of course, a lot of furniture ended up being produced like this because it also is cheaper to make, or at least it would be after laminate became popular. And yet, this table is still quite strong, quite sturdy. It has an incredible, I'm going to raise the camera here for you guys. I want you to see this because you won't be able to see this part of things once I get the machine up. Take a look here, guys. I'll show you the spring. The spring that this machine, like a number of sewing machine tables, excuse me, came with a very beefy, robust spring to help you raise the machine up, so you didn't have to, you know, pick it up. Now, you know, machines could be quite heavy back in the day. Let me zoom in here. I don't know if this will show up. There we go. You can see, I mean, this thing is stout. And it's a wonderful thing to have. And there are 2 bolts that hold this machine in place. And I'll show you the machine in just a moment. See if I can zoom back out here. Now I'm going to pull this piece up. This is a flap, and some of you with vintage tables will recognize this. Now I am going to crank up my tripod here so you guys can see how things look down in the table when the machine is folded away. Bear with me here as I raise the tripod, and then we'll tilt things down, and maybe you guys can see there. You can see there's the back side of it, and I'll kind of keep this positioned here, and you can see me. I'll reach in, and then I'm going to pull, and oh, it's so easy. All I had to do was nudge the machine, and whoever engineered these springs did so with just the right amount of tension, okay, because the spring is just really beefy. And then as I lift up, boom, it just almost, you can see the advertising material. It raises itself, and it almost does. Just a little bit of nudging from me. Now, as it comes up, you actually pick up, and it's going to come up almost like an elevator. Once you get it rotated vertically, you're going to pull up because it wants to kind of bounce like this. And when you pull up, you then put the flap down, as you can see me doing. You guys can see me doing this. Now, one thing to watch for on these, it's very common. This one's not so bad, but I do see one spot right here where the paint is scratched. Because of how this table was designed, it was designed to be fairly snug, all of these pieces. And so you can see what happened here. This piece right here is metal behind this little, there's like a little plastic rest, but behind that is, I think it's a bolt of some sort. Anyway, it would scratch, and a lot of times you'll see a scratch over here as well. And they line up with these bolts. And it's unfortunate, but I don't even know if it was the user's fault so much as just the way it was designed. So if I pull the machine up enough, right, we've got a little button here, I can actually get this down. I can try to get it down. There it goes. Ooh. And then, once I set things down, it sits just like you see here. Now, the way this was designed, and I'll come back down. Let's get you guys lowered back down with a better or different view. Now, this is a little curious to me. I noticed that the machine sits in the table. It's not totally flush though. Notice there's still an edge here. Now, not as much as if it was just sitting by itself. These machines, of course, many of them came in carrying cases, and you would take it out of the carry case, just put it up on any table, and you could sew with it. You can certainly do that now. A lot of people do that because it is a free arm. And up here, there's looks like some sort of sticky, looks like somebody had a tag on it at one point. It's got both of its spool pins, and again, I have not gone to use the machine. I haven't turned. This feels stiff, and I'm not surprised. It's probably been sitting a really long time. So again, I'm not going to force it. You guys know, this is kind of curious. This little lever here, which should normally be pointed to, it's actually in the middle. It's totally in the center. These machines, of course, and I've gone over these in prior videos, where these machines, because they were consumer products of the 70s, they're designed to do stretch stitches for knits and so forth. They have a lot of bells and whistles for a machine of that era. And wonderful, tension assemblies. I got this in an auction, and my switch looks good over here. I got this at an auction, and it looks like they tried to do some test stitching with it. Their testing doesn't look all that great. And let's see if I can, I don't even know. This thing moves very slowly. It's not like the other one I have that's frozen, but this thing I can tell it's really asleep. It's been asleep for a long time. So here you can see somebody tested it by doing some stitching on top, but of course if you turn it underneath, the stitching, it needs adjustment. But I think they were just testing it to see if it would power on or something. So anyway, I'm going to go back and look in the manual to see if in fact this thing was designed to be any more flush. And it may not be. It may be that this is how it was designed. Maybe that's why this angle is here. So you could just take fabric and sew over it. But in any case, you are looking, this is only the second Kenmore multi-stitcher from the 70s I've ever gotten that had its original table. Now underneath here are what I call the very special and hard to find. If I can find out underneath here where I'm supposed to grab. Okay, I'm going to pull this out for you guys so you can see. I'm going to pull one out. There are two of these. These, if you ever see a bolt like this, guys, it almost looks like a big button. These bolts were designed to go into this style of table and to attach Kenmore multi-stitchers like these to the table. If you want your machine to sit still and not have the danger of falling out and crash landing on the floor, you want these. If you ever see these, and maybe you have them in a Kenmore table, who knows where they get end up in a Singer table. Sewing stuff has a way of kind of ending up all over the place. Don't throw them out. If you don't know what they go to, hold on to them. You can sell these. There are people who want their Kenmore to mount into their Kenmore table, but someone lost the bolts, the magic bolts. Now they may be a certain size. Maybe there's a way to modify, maybe get the same thread size bolt and use it in place of these. I don't know. Probably so. But boy, is it nice. And this thing has a knurling on the, I call it a knurling, on the edge. It makes it easy to grip. And these bolts came out even though they'd been sitting for a long time, because this machine was in the table at auction. I don't think it had been removed. So again, I rarely use the term rare. I seldom use the term rare when talking about Kenmores, but finding a Kenmore with its original table and its original mounting belts, not always easy to find this. Finding the machines is not hard, but getting the table, and I bought it because I figured, well, there may be someone who not only needs a machine like this, but would like a table. I find that half of my clients really want tables, and the other half say, do you have a case? Because I really just want it in a case, and I can never predict. So, you guys know that I have, let's see, how many do I have right now? I currently have two more machines like this. One of them is the sad hard luck case I'm still working on. We'll see what happens this summer. And then the other one I got recently, and I got them because people either want way too much money for them, or they just don't sell. People don't realize what they are missing with these. And like I said, I have, this is one of my favorite machines, one of my only favorite machines from the 70s, because it was made in Japan before they started using plastic gears. And it's one of the last ever in the history of sewing machines to be made all steel. And that matters. That's why I consider this to be the last of the great heirloom quality machines. And a ton of them were made. Remember that Sears was once such a powerful retailer. They sold almost as many sewing machines as Singer did, and Singer was the biggest of them all. So if, whoever had the contract for Kenmore machines, and this particular one was a Japanese company called Maruzen, and they'll often say, it says here, made in Japan. These machines are not as simple as a good old Ironside Singer straight stitcher, and they can be more complicated to restore. And if you've been following along with the sad case of the one that people had put grease in, the one I bought more than a year ago, I think 2 years now, before the pandemic, I bought that machine. And when you have a machine that can do all sorts of wonderful things, the more features it has, the more potential issues it can have. It doesn't have to, but it can certainly be, if a machine has issues, it's going to take more time and effort and patience than a simpler straight stitch machine. But these machines are the only alternative that I know of. There's a series of models that look like this. One of them has an opening, a little door up top, and it takes cams. This one does not, but it still has tons of built-in stitches here. These machines are really, if you really like new machines and you like a lot of the fancy stitches that they can do, if you want to get that in an heirloom or a vintage all-metal machine, these are one of the few you can do this with. Because many machines in the 1970s, including the hybrids I've shown you, the Janomis, even in Japan, they were starting to put in plastic parts. I'm not worried about the outside and the dials. I'm talking about inside. And they started doing that to cut corners, to save money, to prevent from having to raise the prices sky high, because the retailers would put pressure on the manufacturers. Hey, we don't want to raise prices, that'll reduce sales. And so eventually all of this production would even leave Japan, it would go to Taiwan, and eventually China. So, there's a long sliding story into disposable products. But this was sort of the last great hurrah of the era of all metal machines. And this is one of the reasons I love them so very much. And we'll do some more videos on this machine and talking about what it can do. I've done a number of videos on restoring these, so I'm not going to go through every single step with this one, but I wanted to show this to you guys mainly because of this. I've had one other table that I came across. I don't know if these Kenmores by the mid-70s, they just didn't sell as many tables. Houses were starting to get larger, so I don't really know. It could be that there was a revival of sewing as a craft in the 70s. But again, I don't know if people were sewing to the degree they might have, say, a half century earlier in the 20s. I don't know. If any of you guys know if in fact there was a trend toward having more machines in cases, fewer sewing tables, let me know. I'm not really sure. I don't want to just make that statement. But I've noticed this particular machine, I see lots of these, but I seldom see them in tables. And so I've got a couple that, well, actually, the other two I have don't even have cases, but that doesn't matter because the case for the Kenmore is used simply to transport it. It's not like those Japanese clone machines where the case, or the earlier Singers, for example, where the case is actually needed to give it a steady place. You can take this machine out of this table or a case, just put it right on a dining table. It's solid. It's designed to be used on a tabletop of your choice if you want to. But there you go, guys. I know I I buy these machines, and you know what? The name Kenmore, for some of my clients who remember the quality and the reputation that this name once represented, they get it, and they love these machines. But some of my younger clients, they'll ask for Singers, and the Singers that I restore I consider wonderful models, wonderful candidates for restoration. They're amazing in their own way. But to get a machine that can do this kind of stitching and be all metal, these are one of your only choices, and one of the last ever made until everything home or domestic sewing machine quality went plastic. So just thought I would share this with you guys. Again, this would have been a very expensive machine in the day, just in the carry case, and someone paid extra for the table. And if I turn the camera here, you can see the drawers. You know, there are things that came with the machine. Let's see what we've got here. We've got, I don't know, I've got receipts. I don't know if someone was making a payment. I think they may have just had some service done. This is dated. What is this dated? 1997 or something. So it's been a while since it's been serviced. That's why, you know, there's your validation for why the thing is so slow to move, but that's okay. We're gonna wake her up. This is curious. Not sure what this is. I'll have to investigate this. It looks like the plug goes into this, but I don't know if this was designed for I'll have to check it out. Let me know if you guys know if this was used for any kind of conversion to another volt system, but that would be odd because the Kenmore brand was not sold outside of North America to my knowledge, but I could be wrong. And again, there's lots of thread spools. Here's a rather lovely vintage Class 66 bobbin. This does not fit this Kenmore, but for those of you who have bought estate sales or vintage machines and tables, you know you often find all sorts of sewing accessories that don't belong with the machine. Someone had a Singer at some point and said, "Hey, do you want this bobbin?" Someone said, "Sure," but at least it's a vintage one and of high quality. Here is a low shank sewing foot. It's a zigzag foot, but of course this machine takes, and here is, I'm not even sure. This doesn't even look low shank, maybe high shank. And this looks like I think it's a button foot. What's so odd about this is that this machine, this particular model, takes the super high shank that I've shown you guys in one of my other videos, because Sears was basically mimicking, trying to mimic Bernina, and I will talk another time about why I like Kenmore multi-stitch machines like these even better than Bernina's. I know I'll get in trouble for saying that, but there it is. And I'll explain that in a different video. And what have we got here? Here's a little screwdriver. What does it say? Does it says anything? Yeah, Kenmore. Okay, so it's original to the machine. Given how much people had to pay for these things, it's understandable why it could at least include some tools. Here is a sort of a quick, basically little piece that was added to the manual, and it's basically, what does it say? The three basic steps for good stitching you may have overlooked. I'm sure this was created because you had people coming to the store saying this machine has problems, and very often it would have been user error. Here we go, the Big Needles Threading Shuttle Care. This is your basic guide. And then we have a separate guide for how to, what are we doing here? Oh, how to instructions for sewing positions. Now this might be what I need to figure out how to get my machine totally flush. For storage, I'll be reading and studying this just to make sure that it's not me that's goofing up and why the machine is not flush. It could be just that's how it was designed. I don't yet know. But again, and you can see the schematic on that wonderful spring. They were not messing around with these. I don't actually see the original manual, strangely enough, but I have a PDF version, so I'm not worried. And here is the buttonholer that came with this machine, still covered in plastic. I doubt it was ever used. I don't know for sure, but willing to bet. And we have, here's a couple of buttonhole templates. And we have here's some more super high shank. There's a plastic, and yet here's another foot. So again, here we go. To mention this, guys, if you get a Kenmore machine from this era and you see something like this, do not toss this away. This is quite valuable. The Japanese company that designed and made this for Sears came up with a little clever way to switch out the needle plate. So right now the machine has a needle plate that is designed. It has an oblong opening, and that's for the zigzag, and that's where most of the sewing was done. But if you wanted to sew delicates and maybe some lightweight fabrics, you could simply put this in, and instead of undoing the whole plate, it's an insert. And this plate, the one that's in here, will pop out, and you can simply turn this one in. It has a little latch that puts it under tension so it doesn't come out when you don't want it to. It's a clever little idea, but these go missing. You'll sometimes see these advertised for sale on places like eBay and other places. So if you ever get anything that comes with your machine and you don't know what it is, do not throw it away. Hold on to it. You may find later, once you start studying the machine, that you really could use that item. And don't really see anything else in here. Here's the button holder. Somebody had put it in the drawer. Maybe they did try using it. I don't know. But again, now I do see there's one of the, looks like an original bobbin. It looks like it got, I don't know, something's on it. I don't know if that's rust. I don't know why it would have rust on it. These are nickel plated normally. But this still has thread on it. I can probably buff this out. As long as I can get that metal smooth, I'll save this this bobbin. But this is the Class 15 bobbin. This is the bobbin that is appropriate for this machine, not the one I showed you guys earlier. But anyway, there you go, guys. This is the Kenmore. I would say circa 1975, 1976-ish. And then after that, they would have one more redesign, and I think that was the end for the all-metal machines for Sears. So they hung out longer. They hung out. They stuck to all-metal machines longer than most, even longer than Singer did. So I will give them that. And once this machine has had the hours it's going to take me to go through it, wake it up, clean it, relubricate it, adjust, test, when that is all done, this is, for some people who really like multiple functions on a sewing machine, this is about as good as it gets as far as I'm concerned in terms of having an heirloom quality machine that will do, you know, it's a lot easier, quote unquote easier, to sew knits when you can do things like this modifier allows you to do the stretch stitches, to build in some slack so that your stitches don't pop, which can often happen with knits. Again, knits were a big thing in the 70s, and so a lot of the sewing machines reflect that. But this is a machine I like to say is often underappreciated. People will pass right by them and say, oh, Kenmore, is that like a Sears machine? You know, I want a Singer, or I want a Bernina, or I want something, you know, a brand name. Well, if you go and research just how impressive the guarantee and the satisfaction warranties were with Sears back then, not now, you can see just how impressive these were, along with the machines that were sold for other department stores, right? If you bought a department store branded machine, department stores had impeccable warranties and guarantees, and so they couldn't sell crap, because if they did, it would have ruined their business. So keep this in mind, and if you ever see a machine that you want, but maybe you don't want to spend the money for a Bernina, take a look at one of these. You may just be surprised at the quality, not only the quality of the construction, but the quality of the stitches. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we will see you in the next video.